Walk into a room with 10 small plants arranged across surfaces and windowsills and shelves, and something registers before you've consciously noticed the plants at all. The room feels managed, tended, like someone has been collecting, adding, adjusting, and hasn't stopped. Walk into a room with one large plant in exactly the right place, and you feel the opposite. The room feels decided. The plant isn't decorating the space, it's anchoring it. That difference between a room that collects plants and a room that places one is the difference between a room that looks assembled and a room that looks composed. Most people reach for small plants because small plants feel safe. A 4-inch pot of succulents on a windowsill commits to nothing. You can move it, replace it, forget it. Now, a 7-foot olive tree in a stone urn in the corner of a library commits to everything. The ceiling height, the furniture scale, the light source, the floor material, all of it has to be right for that plant to work. When it is right, the plant becomes architecture. When it isn't, the plant exposes every other thing in the room that doesn't belong. There's a particular kind of room, the kind that gets photographed and remembered, where you can trace the whole composition back to a single large plant. A mature fiddle-leaf fig rising to 10 feet against a wall of dark painted paneling. A clipped base standard in an aged lead urn beside a fireplace, its silhouette cutting across the plaster like a formal gesture. A large olive tree positioned near a tall window, so the afternoon light catches its silver-green leaves and throws a shifting shadow across the herringbone parquet below. These plants are doing structural work. They're filling vertical space the way a floor lamp does, drawing the eye upward, giving the room a scale reference that furniture alone can't provide. Remove them, and something collapses. The room loses a load-bearing element you didn't know was there. What small plants can't do, no matter how many of them you arrange, is address the vertical. A collection of small plants on a console table or a kitchen shelf moves the eye horizontally. The room stays flat. A large specimen plant extends into a dimension that most interiors ignore almost entirely, the space between the top of the furniture and the ceiling. Nor in a room with 10-foot ceilings, that zone can run 4 feet or more. Most rooms leave it completely empty. A tall plant fills it without the formality of architectural intervention. It solves a proportion problem with something living. This is why scale matters so much with plants specifically. A room with 9-foot ceilings and a 4-foot plant in the corner has a plant. A room with 9-foot ceilings and a 7-foot plant in the corner has an event. The plant at that height starts to relate to the ceiling, to the cornice, to the top of the doorframe. It enters into a conversation with the architecture that a smaller plant simply can't have. And that conversation, between the living thing and the built thing, is what gives certain rooms a quality that's hard to name, but impossible to miss. The room feels inhabited in a way that has nothing to do with the furniture. The container matters more than most people allow. A beautiful plant in a wrong pot is a beautiful plant undermined. I've seen large fiddle-leaf figs sitting in cheap plastic nursery containers directly on a hardwood floor, and the effect is of something that arrived and hasn't been properly received. The same plant in a matte concrete vessel, or a hand-thrown stoneware cylinder with some depth of color to it, or a classical stone urn on a low plinth. The plant changes entirely. The container tells you whether the plant was chosen or merely acquired. A tall cylindrical vessel in unlacquered bronze beside a bergère armchair in tobacco leather reads as a decision. A plastic nursery pot reads as an intention that ran out of follow-through. Height isn't the only dimension that matters. Spread matters too. A large olive tree doesn't just rise, it opens. Its canopy extends outward and creates a zone beneath it, a sheltered pocket of space that the furniture can sit inside rather than alongside. A reading chair positioned so that the canopy of a large indoor tree drifts slightly above it creates a different kind of enclosure than 4 walls alone provide. The room within the room isn't defined by architecture in that moment. It's defined by the plant's presence. And that definition shifts as the light changes through the day and the canopy moves almost imperceptibly. A room that moves is a room that feels alive. The species carries its own argument and shouldn't be chosen carelessly. A fiddle-leaf fig, Ficus lyrata, is a commitment to drama. That broad, architectural leaf has a formality to it, a flatness that reads beautifully against paneling or plaster, but looks strained next to anything rough or rustic. An olive tree is more forgiving, more layered in its structure, more willing to share a room with aged materials and imperfect surfaces. Its leaves are small, silver green, in constant slight motion. Even indoors, even in still air, the olive tree has a restlessness that keeps the room from feeling static. A large monstera in a room with classical proportions can work if everything else is very settled, and the pot is serious enough, but it tips quickly toward the decorative. A mature Strelitzia nicolai, the giant bird of paradise, the large white-flowered species, has a sculptural quality, a stiffness to its paddle-shaped leaves that earns its place in rooms with real volume. But in a tall entrance hall with stone floors and little else, one of those plants at full height is as much architecture as it is horticulture. What rarely works, and what I see constantly, is the impulse to fill a room's empty spaces with plants, rather than address those spaces through composition. A trailing pothos on a shelf because the shelf looked bare. A snake plant in a corner because the corner was empty. A fiddle leaf fig in front of a window because someone read that fiddle leaf figs belong near windows. These aren't design decisions. They're responses to discomfort with empty space. And empty space, handled correctly, is one of the most powerful tools a room has. A plant placed to fill a void confirms the void. A plant placed to complete a composition, to provide the vertical element the room was always missing, and to add the one living thing that connects the floor level to the ceiling level. That plant removes the void entirely, and does it in a way that nothing else in the room could. There's also the question of what a single large plant signals about the person who lives with it. 10 small plants require daily attention. Watering schedules, propagation, rearranging, replacing what dies. They're a hobby expressed in a room. One large plant, well chosen and properly placed, requires less maintenance in aggregate, but more judgment in the choosing. The person who lives with a mature olive tree in a stone urn has made a considered selection and committed to it. The room reflects that commitment the way a good piece of furniture does, not by announcing itself, but by being so plainly right that you stop noticing it as a choice and start accepting it as a given. That's the quality every serious element in a serious room should have. It should look like it couldn't have been otherwise. What I keep returning to, in the rooms that handle this well, is what the single large plant implies about restraint. 10 small plants say, "I like plants." One large plant says, "I know what this room needs." The first is a preference. The second is a judgment. And the rooms that feel considered, the ones where you sit down and sense that every decision has been made, are rooms where judgment is visible in every corner, including the corner where something green and living has been placed with the same deliberateness as the rug, the lamp, the picture hung at exactly the right height on exactly the right wall. The plant that earns its place doesn't ask you to notice it. It simply changes what the room would be without it. Pull it out mentally, and the room drops. Something structural leaves with it. That's the standard. Not whether the plant is beautiful, not whether it's fashionable, not whether it photographs well, whether the room needs it, and whether without it you'd feel the absence. Some rooms get close to this and then undo it at the last moment. The plant is right, the pot is right, the placement is right. And then a small ceramic pot of succulents appears on the table nearby, or a trailing plant is added to the shelf above, as if the room needed reassurance that one plant was enough. It didn't. The single large specimen was already doing everything required of it. The additions don't extend the idea, they dilute it. One plant making a clear statement is always stronger than two plants making a muddled one. The discipline of stopping, of saying this is what the room needs and nothing more, is exactly the same discipline that makes a room feel edited rather than decorated. Edited rooms hold, decorated rooms date. The plant is part of that argument, or it isn't part of the room at all.